Okay. Well, Bryan, thank you for agreeing to be interviewed. This is another episode of the Happy Accidents podcast and one of our English classes. We're going to do kind of a little hybrid thing here. So, Bryan, welcome. And um, again, thank you for being here. So, let's kick off. So,
Yes,
Bryan, you're from Loja, um, and you
I
are
am.
a computer engineer. So, could you tell me a little bit about Loja? Describe the city for people in the United States or other regions of Ecuador or other countries that have never visited.
Of, of course. Yeah, first of all, thanks, Steve, for this opportunity. And and yeah, talking about Loja, well, Loja is a small city in the south of the country. Um, it's I think it's pretty beautiful. It's in the past it was pretty safe and quiet to live there. Uh, but now you know how's the situation on my country. So uh, that kind of stuff, that kind of crime, has involved also that city. But it's still pretty secure in comparison with other parts of the Ecuador. Um, yeah, well, as I told you, it's pretty small. It's pretty uh, like there is not too much there in comparison with the capital here in Quito, but it's pretty beautiful. It has a lot of resources, natural resources, and also there are it's a town there that which is pretty recognized in other countries. It is called Vilcabamba. Its name is
I've heard of
Vilcabamba.
it. Yeah, I've
Yeah,
heard of
Vilcabamba. It's famous because the its rivers. Uh, I don't know why, but there are like a um a myth or something like that. A story
it.
which
A
is
myth.
the water of that place can you uh, you can rejuvenecer. I don't know how to say. But
So rejuvenate.
rejuvenate has those properties, but I don't know. It's it's a story, but it's pretty famous for that. And yeah, I think the best, well, in my opinion, the best food is from there.
Mhm.
But I think that, well, I believe that everyone in every place think about the the food on their places is the best, or the top one in the country. But yeah, because I'm from there, so basically I'm conditioned because I
Well, you're
grow there.
biased. It's your home. Yeah.
Yeah, it's my home, so I'm conditioned.
Okay.
But yeah, I have to say it's delicious. Food is
Nice.
delicious, and women are um you know beautiful and angry, like very strong in their decisions. Sometimes um well, it's really know that women there are like that wild, that has that intensity for everything,
Right.
so they are
Which can
pretty.
be good for some things, but bad for
Yeah.
others.
Exactly. you know so yeah, what's more, and yeah, there are a lot of places, you can find a lot of nature there.
Mhm.
It's pretty small. Also, we have a border with uh, Peru.
Okay, so Bryan, could you describe the landscape for people who are not familiar? And let
Oh,
me give some context for viewers that are not familiar with Ecuador's general landscape. Ecuador has different areas or sectors that have different climates. So you have the coastal region, which is warm, and You start the ascension up the Andes Mountains. Quito, the capital, is in the Andes Mountains. And then on the other side, the eastern side of the mountains, you have the Amazon rainforest. So Loja, I believe, is at the south of Ecuador, but I believe it is highlands, right?
Yes.
Right. So can you describe what it looks like when you're in what type of ecosystem or landscape can a visitor see?
Yeah, for sure. Well, as you said, it's in the southwest part of the country. Um, there are a lot of mountains there. It's pretty green, like the view is green in each place. Um, we are located at 2,000 meters uh above the ocean.
So
Um,
very
so
high.
yeah, it's it's high. It's not high as here in Quito, but it's pretty high.
That's right.
Um, it's rainy, always. And like, there are a few weeks in the year that you can find like the sky without clouds, because the rest of the time is pretty rainy. Um, yeah, also, yeah, we have a lot of rivers and falls and waterfalls.
Hmm. That's
Yeah, that's
yeah.
pretty cool,
So
because you
yeah,
you can you can go a waterfall, like, wherever you are in Loja. You can go to, or you can find a waterfall, um like around less an hour, something like that.
nice, nice.
Yeah.
That's very, very close. And we're talking about like big waterfalls, not like a little small thing.
Yeah, no, 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 well, the small one could have like 10 meters of, um you know
That's still pretty big.
yes, and
Yeah.
then the small one, there are others, much bigger.
Okay.
um yeah.
So what are some of the principal economic activities in Loja? What does this province? Well, Loja's a city, and it's in which province?
Loja is the capital of Loja. Loja is the
Oh,
name of
and
the
Loja is
province,
also
and
the
Loja,
province. Okay.
yeah.
So what is the principal economic activity in Loja?
Yeah, it's a city, with a lot of agriculture there. And also, oh, well, I'm not sure how to say it, but this ganadería, um,
Ranching, or
ranching.
you can say producing livestock. So animals for human consumption, cows, chickens, pigs.
Yes, exactly. So there are a lot of this kind of activity there. And the principal product, I think it's the corn, you know,
Corn. Okay.
corn. Yes, corn, and also coffee. It's pretty,
Oh yeah.
Loja is pretty recognized by its coffee.
Right.
In 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 uh, and there are a lot of these events, uh, these prizes, to the best coffee, and Loja have have won
Has won.
has won a couple of them,
Mhm.
and it's pretty common to see, the golden cup of coffee, uh,
Nice.
in some places, some coffee stores in Loja. So yeah, it's pretty recognized that it's high quality, uh the coffee there.
And
So
I
yeah,
can vouch for
both
that.
are
Yeah.
yeah, both are the main products from Loja. Um
Right.
and yeah, and well, his food also is also pretty recognized. And maybe you hear about Tigrillo.
Oh yeah. That's
Yeah, it's
one
from
of my
Zaruma.
favorite foods, Brian. Can you
Yeah.
explain for the audience what tigrillo is, Brian?
Yeah, Tigrillo is made of banana, but it it,
So it's
it
actually that's plantain.
plantain. Yeah, right.
Right. So banana's a sweeter version, but plantain is the green banana, the long green banana. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. The long green banana, plantain. Yeah, it's made by plantain. and with a cheese, but the special cheese from the region. Uh,
Yes.
yes, it's very difficult to get that kind of cheese in other part of the country.
Yes.
There are pretty close. A product is also produced in Manabí, which is
Mhm.
another city of Ecuador. But yeah, I believe that the best is the cheese from Loja.
Mm.
Um, and in also or it's made with eggs as well. It's a mix of everything. You have first to cook the plantain, and then have to fry it a little bit, and how do you
Ash.
say matching, and until you get a consistent past.
Right, right.
Yeah, and you mix everything, and salt, pepper a little bit. Also, well, we call hierbita, but it's
Cilantro, I think is the
cilantro,
yeah.
exactly. It's cilantro. But we call it hierbita now. Um, and yeah, put some eggs there, and and yeah, you have a fantastic dish.
Oh
Uh,
my gosh, I love it.
yes.
So just to clarify, it is a mashed plantain dish that it basically the plantain mash is mixed with cheese and fried egg and many times chicharrón.
All
And
right, that's right. I forgot
don't
that.
forget that, man. Please
Yeah,
don't forget
man.
the
That's
chicharrón, Brian.
Yeah, that's you get the flavor from there, from
Incredible.
chicharrón.
Right.
Exactly.
And then normally that's served with a fried egg on top and a nice glass of orange juice or something like that. But
Yeah, the common drink, it's coffee, to
oh, right, right.
right
Oh, tigre with coffee.
agree
Oh
with
my
coffee. Yeah.
gosh, man, it's ridiculous.
It's
You
some
can't, you
some
can't find that here.
Yeah, well, fun fact
Yeah,
about me is, like, I'm from Loja. Loja is pretty recognized by, his quality, on coffee quality. But I don't like coffee.
I know. You
I
told me.
don't, I don't drink coffee. So it's
Ryan,
weird.
what are
I
you doing? Imagine
don't
living,
know.
imagine living in France where they produce the best wine. And you say, I don't like wine. I don't drink wine. I mean, it's crazy, Brian.
Yeah, I know. It's
Now,
like a
why don't you drink coffee? What is it? The taste? Is it the
Yeah.
psychoactive effect? What is it?
No, I think, how to say it. I grew up with coffee, surrounded coffee. Um, and maybe, because I remember that, when I was young,
Mhm.
I drank a lot of coffee, and, like, and that's probably the reason why I stopped drinking coffee, because maybe I drank too much. I don't know.
You got
Yeah,
sick of it. Yeah.
yeah. So, prob
Okay, that happens.
yeah, it's pretty weird. I don't know. Other person like me that don't like coffee. Um, but yeah, man, this
Okay, cool,
this.
man. So, Brian, just to conclude this Loja part of the conversation, what or how are people from Loja or Lojanos, how are Lojanos similar to other Ecuadorians, but also different from other Ecuadorians? How are they
Okay.
similar and different?
Okay. Well, something similar probably is, that we are very, well, it probably has to do with the region that we are, but we are, like, pretty quiet, pretty calm. You know, we we don't we are not, like, very extrovert. How do you say extrovertidos?
Extroverted.
Extroverted, yeah. We We don't we aren't extroverted people. Um, and also yeah, probably something that we has in common with Ecuadorian is like we love or we drink a lot of alcohol, you know.
No.
Yes,
Uh,
and there are a lot of drinks with alcohol. There, one of them, or very recognized, is the Canta Claro. Is Canta Claro. It's a alcohol made of eh, caña de azúcar. I don't know how to say it.
sugar
It's
cane.
sugar cane. Yeah, thank you. It's made with sugar cane. Um, and it's delicious. I have to say it. Yeah, and yeah, so yeah, I think it's the most common thing here in Ecuador. You know, you can go out with your friends and always have drink. You know, to share. Also, Ecuador is very recognized, but because well, it's called the La Cuna de Artistas. It's um there are
Which translates to the cradle of artists for the listeners or viewers. Continue, man.
yeah in in well, it's people say like every family there has any ability with the music, maybe can sing or can play guitar, play any instrument, and also there are a good dancers there, so everything related with the music and art. um yeah, it's something common there. So that's why the name.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, that's pretty interesting.
Okay, cool, man. So let's shift into your profession, Brian. So
Okay.
what made you choose this profession? What inspired you? And what keeps you engaged? I know
Mm,
it can be a tedious job. Coding can be a very tedious job. So
hi.
what inspired you to choose this and what keeps you engaged?
Yes. Yes, that's pretty easy. I developed this passion for computer science thanks to my brother. Because when I was child, my brother is like, yeah, it's 4 years old than me. It's older
Cool.
than me.
Hmm.
It's 4 years older than me. So yeah, I grew up seeing how he start, in this industry. He is also like he love also the computers, like especially for the video games. Yeah. So he loves video games, and I saw when I was child my brother playing video games, and that was fantastic, and also he is pretty curious. So um so yeah, he started like touching um and the stuff in the code, but basically in the video games, because we have pirate video games. Because here in Ecuador,
Pirated video games.
yeah, it was a lot of years ago. Was pretty difficult to get an original one. So so yeah, he started like touching, changing some stuff, pretty small. Like I remember, he could um he could change the name of the video game with his name. So
Hmm.
that was pretty cool. The name was World Warcraft, uh, and he put there like Joyous Warcraft, something.
Mm.
I remember that. um, it's pretty easy to do it, but it it uh, it made a change for me. And then I started also playing video games, and that I think it's the most common event, like is the most common thing that programmers or people in tech environment uh, loves, like video games. And
Mm.
that's why a lot of us started in this industry. It's thanks to the video games, I think. Then I was, I was involved, get involved more in this industry, and I discovered that my passion is coding. It's pretty weird because it's not something that you see that is fun. Like, if you see a person coding, yeah,
Yeah,
bored. You
it
just
looks very tedious and boring.
exactly. But yeah, but I think that that's the um uh, that this is what differences, people, because for me this view or this feeling about solve any problem with coding uh makes me feel, pretty excited, pretty uh,
Nice.
and you can also you can see the product in your computer before realizing, or before uh, or in a easiest way, easiest way, because you just need a computer, and you can start touching and start writing some code, and you see
Now, when you say touching, what do you mean?
well, touching is for me is like playing with the code,
Okay.
like moving things around.
Okay. Okay.
Exactly. So your changes, and 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 yeah, and so you can see those changes, like, putting your name in
The
a
game.
title of for example, Facebook. You can change the title of Facebook with your name, and that's pretty, it's pretty uh uh like tonto, voy a decir, something like that.
Pretty silly.
Yeah, exactly. But um but yeah, at the end you feel something weird. It's exciting to know. Um, and yeah, so I started from that way. Uh, then I also met some people with this industry. Uh, I met my friends right now here in Quito. Um, which, when you share experiences and things in common with other people, you can like you get more strong feelings about that. You know, it's I don't know, it's something like that. But but yeah, I started from uh yeah, from overall influenced by my brother, and then yeah, I'm here.
Nice. So, Brian, and where do you see yourself, let's say in 15, 20 years, in terms of your profession? Where do you see yourself, or where would you like to see yourself? Where would you like to be in
Yeah,
10, 15 years, maybe 20?
man, man, yeah, uh that's a complex question, because
Yeah, it is.
yeah, I don't like to think too much in the future.
Right.
I know that it's really useful, because if you don't have an objective, uh maybe you don't have, oh yeah,
You don't
your
have
life
direction.
doesn't make sense. Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
you kind of don't have a clear path.
Clear
You
path,
don't know.
exactly. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
my in the future, when for me, my future, um, I would like to have a pretty chill life, relaxing in my house. I don't want like a pretty big house, but I would like to have maybe a pool in there.
Mm.
Yeah, and also in a city like Loja, small, quiet, safe, and with a lot of nature around it. Uh, because I
So
love
do you
nature.
see yourself in Ecuador in 15, 20 years?
Maybe yes. I would like to migrate to other country like New Zealand or those countries in the north of Europe.
Well, what about Italy? I know that your mom is in
Yeah,
Italy.
my mom is in Italy. That's right. But I think mm, it's beautiful for sure. But there are a lot of tourism there.
Mm.
And yeah, I don't, and also it's expensive, but I know that there are other regions expensive as well. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's for the culture or something like that. The food there is it's delicious. I mean,
So you mean maybe the Italian culture is not the culture for you?
yeah, maybe. I prefer like more nature,
Ah, yeah.
for s- more relaxing stuff. And yeah, I don't know. Also, my career like tech industry is not as high developed as I wanted there. I mean, there are other regions uh, with with more opportunities for my profession. It's also one uh, yeah, one reason why I don't see my future in Italy, for example. I
Mm.
have a mom there, and I would like to stay close. Um, but yeah, I prefer like something like Canada, for example, is also uh, another option for me.
Okay, so Brian, for my viewers in the United States, why is the United States not on your list? And be honest, okay?
It is in my
It
list.
is on your list. Okay.
Yeah, it is in my list. But it's not like my first option only because I prefer other regions like the um and I don't know the name is Noruega maybe
Norway.
Norway, right. I prefer uh, like views, or how do you say, landscapes
Landscapes, yeah.
scapes like la
But what
like
about the snow and the cold and the long, long winters, Brian?
yeah,
Remember, in
yeah, yeah.
Norway, summer is like 2 months or 3 months. I mean, summer is very short. And Brian, the majority of the year, Norwegians are, kind of cold. You know,
Right,
it's
that's
not very
right.
far from the Arctic. So
Yeah, but
for me, I agree. It's a beautiful landscape.
yes.
But I like New Zealand more, right? Simply because New Zealand, you're not near the Arctic,
All
right?
right.
New
Right.
Zealand has mountains and rainforest. New Zealand, is amazing. But
Yes.
Norway too, but I don't, long, long winters are not my thing. So,
Yeah, but if my decision, well, if I have to choose a really good weather, I prefer to stay in Central America because a tropical weather is more common there. Um,
yes, that's
yeah.
true.
So, but I prefer like I prefer a cold weather
Hmm.
instead of have a yeah cold. But sorry, what is the hot? Huh?
Hot weather. Yeah.
Hot weather. Yeah. So yeah, I prefer cold. So that's
Okay.
right. But yeah, my top one is New Zealand. Then those kind of countries in the north of Europe. Also, USA is also in my list because you know all the technology is from there. The innovation, well, the main innovation is from USA. And for my profession, uh, the best option is to work there. But also it's pretty difficult right now to migrate there. Um, yeah,
Well, legally, yes.
legally, yeah, I don't like,
You
I
can
don't like.
walk across the border right now,
Yeah,
Brian.
yeah, yeah, yes.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I'm this kind of person that likes to do
Of course.
legal
You
things.
don't want to walk. Look,
Yeah,
man, you have a profession, you're a computer programmer. I mean, you would be hurting yourself if you entered the United States illegally.
illegally.
It wouldn't
Uh,
benefit you, you know.
yeah, and that's why Canada it's also other option because
Right.
here are a lot of things that they more it's easier.
Easier. Yeah, Canada facilitates the immigration of professionals a lot easier than the United States.
Exactly.
I don't understand why. It seems like the United States brings in a lot more unskilled labor rather than skilled labor.
Huh?
But in Canada, they bring in a lot of skilled labor. So um, I don't know why, but it's weird. But so
Yeah.
Brian, let's change topics again. So if you could, and I don't want to talk too much on this topic because there are other topics, but if you could update the listeners or the viewers with the current situation in Quito where you are, with electricity and just in general, what is life like right now in Quito or in Ecuador in general?
Yes. Well, right now, the situation is pretty um delicate. Like, we are crossing uh, crossing a very dangerous situation with um the drugs stuff. All these um all this crime related with drugs. And there are like a internal battle here, an internal war with these people. Uh, and, and
Well, you mean the criminals between the
criminals, yeah, yeah,
narco
with the
groups.
criminals,
Okay.
against the government, uh,
Oh, okay.
against the state. So yeah, uh,
Oh, sorry to interrupt, Brian, but that's one war, right? Battle between the narco groups and the government. But
exactly.
I believe that the narco groups are also in confrontation with each other. And I
Right.
also think that the government, there is also a political battle in Ecuador. So in
Yeah,
Ecuador, there are multiple battles
multiple
occurring.
battles at the same time. Yeah, we are crossing this situation. There are a lot of, well, eh, there is a pretty like pretty pretty big division of the political thinking. You know, mm, the for on one side is the correísmo, which is something. It's a movement, a socialist movement led by Rafael Correa, which was a president in a decade ago. Um, and there are the oppositors, which are conformed, or conformed by a lot of other groups, small groups, but all of them are against the correísmo just for uh the the hate, like mm, yeah, it's all about hate, basically. um and yeah, that battle is constantly in those years. And also another kind of battles arise, like the narco traffic. Um, and also there was a problem with the lead of the narco traffics, uh, which was murder, and uh, a lot of a lot of groups uh, were split from that
Are you
conflict.
talking about Rasquinia or Leandro Norrero?
Uh, Racinia, I think, was the first one.
Rasquinia, yeah.
And and now they are trying to, become the new lead of narco traffic here, and that's why there are conflicts between those groups. And also there are a battle with the state. Mm, and well, this is a pretty like, I'm not too much into this problem. Uh, I just hear a few things about the about the Correísmo was um was invested, uh was, well, I don't know how to say it, but it um uh, was support by narcotráfico. That's the narrative here, and that's why right now they are trying to get back this movement, this political party. Um, and yeah, we're crossing all these problems, and also right now, due to the phenomenon del Niño,
Yeah.
uh, we are having a
Oh,
dry period,
yeah.
and yeah, so hydroelectrics doesn't have the amount enough of water to provide energy to the cities. So so that's why we're having a power cutting. Um, and yeah, it happened in the past president period. But right now it's happening again. Um, and yeah, we are not sure. Like, it's also, there are a lot of narratives here, like it's something related also with the Correísmo. You know, President Noboa says like it's Correa, uh, which is trying to um sabotage their mandatory. Um, and yeah, and this is, I don't know. I don't understand also a lot of this stuff. I know, but you can see, you can see the problem. That his evolution. Well, yeah, the problem, the amount of that problem that is rising. So so yeah, it's pretty delicate right now. It's not the best stage for the country. So I don't know. In this Sunday, where um where a public consulting.
So you had this past Sunday, you had polls.
Yes, exactly. We had polls past Sunday. Um, to make some decisions about narco traffic and other economics regulations, and also that were like pretty criticized
Criticized.
criticized um by the Correísmo movement and also the Novoa movement. So they were there were like a battle all again, uh, to see if those questions were approved or not. So so yeah, we are involved in a lot of uh yeah, in a lot of problems, and also with the international issues, like you know, like the problem with the embassy Mexico embassy. um yeah, was a problem there. uh, Also, again, the Correísmo was involved in that problem. And like always, people says, uh, like, oh man, like Correísmo has the guilty,
Has the blame
the
or
blame,
is guilty.
is has the blame. And also, on the other hand, people say like is was the fault of the current president, which indeed it was, because you know he he made the decision to enter by force in the embassy. uh,
Hmm.
and yeah, so we are involved on many issues right now.
Okay. So, Brian, when did the drug trafficking problems become a serious threat to public safety? When did that happen? I mean, was this always the case? I mean, most Americans understand that Colombia has always had, you know, problems with narco trafficking, Mexico as well, Peru as well, but Ecuador has really historically escaped much of that violence. So when did this start for you in Ecuador? Was this in your lifetime? Was this before you were born?
Mm, I think, well, it was uh, it's something like a rise recently, you
Right.
know. Recently, like, it in every country there are a level of narco traffic uh, internally. I mean, um, but yeah, here in Ecuador, it has grown up um in the past years, like maybe 8 years ago, something like that. Um, and well, there are a lot of reasons. One of them, it could be like the other countries around, because Ecuador is in the center of the most, or the biggest producers of uh, uh,
Cocaine.
drugs, cocaine, especially like Colombia and Peru. So we are in the middle of those countries. Um, and due to the regulations against Colombia and Peru, uh, like the gate of these countries were closed, so they tried to use Ecuador, uh, like the center of the commercialization for this kind of drugs. So so this is one reason, and that was like, I it could be like the main reason. And also the other reason, it was because um there were mm, a lot of, well, disturbs in
Disturbances.
this, how do you say, sorry,
Disturbances.
disturbances in some prisons here in Ecuador. um and that uh, that increased the um the problem, to because they were trying to get like the control of this activity.
Hmm.
uh so we are, and also, well, it's also something that is not it's not true. It's just a narrative, it's probably it's a fake news, probably not. I'm not sure. I'm not sure about that, but says like, the last government, well, not last government, the last the Korea president was involved also in, like, they made a trade with the narco traffics uh,
They made an agreement.
agreement. Thank you. Yeah, they made an agreement. Um, and uh, and yeah, and that's why on those well, in his period, narco traffic were under control. Well, under control, because
But is
they
there evidence of that, Brian? Is there evidence for that narrative?
and there are a couple of them, like, like, for example, some, like, airports. How do you say airports is well done? We'll say that, right?
Yeah.
Airports in the frontier that no one used, but probably was
Border.
used, exactly, um, in the border, and so no one used it. So probably it was made for the um for the traffic of the drug. Uh, Also, the border also where the streets were uh, how do you say, were built just for that activity. Um, and yeah, and a couple of them more, but it's not pretty high. That's why it's a narrative, like, that's why no one knows if it's a reality or just a fake news. Um, which which can, for me, I don't understand a lot of the situation, um but yeah, but the only thing that I know that in that period were pretty quiet, was this kind of problems doesn't didn't happen. So yeah, probably was maybe it was because it was, developed in the shadows, to say something, but I don't know. And yeah, and maybe this is the main reason, like, um you know a lot of groups were trying to get the control of the traffic, uh, drugs activity, and uh, and yeah, and we are in the middle of the top one uh, producers of this drug. So
Producers or trafficking locations? Because I don't think they produce drugs in Ecuador.
no, no, no. I mean, we are in the middle of two
Oh,
countries
right. Of course. Yeah, yeah,
producers.
yeah.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
Brian, I have to say that, I lived in Ecuador for a little over 10 years, and I was there when Correa was president, and I was also there for Moreno and Lasso and Noboa. I was there before narco trafficking was a big deal, uh,
Hmm.
and I was there after it became a big deal. And I think that there are two real important moments to to understand. The first was when Lenin Moreno took office.
Yeah,
Now,
right.
Lenin Moreno was elected by the people of Ecuador, and he represented Rafael Correa's political party which was what people say el correísmo or Alianza País or whatever, but he represented Rafael Correa's party. In fact, he was Rafael Correa's vice president.
Exactly.
And then 2 or 3 months after he was elected, it appears to me that the narrative changed. Something happened behind closed doors in secret. Perhaps Moreno was bribed, perhaps he was bought,
Hmm.
but Correa's political opponents on the right, Correa's on the left, his political opponents on the right somehow influenced Lenin Moreno, and Lenin Moreno betrayed his political party and President Correa.
Yeah.
He changed the narrative. Remember, 3 months before he was elected, he was Correa's good and Correismo's great and this is great. The country's in good condition. And then a few months after he's elected, he starts changing the narrative. And the justice system in Ecuador immediately started persecuting President Correa and his vice president, Jorge Glass. Now, I don't know if that was justified. The right, the
Mm.
political right in Ecuador
Right.
says that Correa and his vice president were corrupt, but
Uh-huh.
I think they're all corrupt. I think all
Yeah.
politicians are corrupt on the right and the left. So they started, they attempted to put Correa in prison, and this is why Correa currently lives in Belgium. So I think
Yeah.
this was the first critical moment. And this was the moment that Moreno, who I believe will be in the future, will be known as Ecuador's greatest traitor. He betrayed the nation who elected President Correa, and he sold the position of presidency and the power of presidency to the political right. From that moment, the media companies and the government started changing the narrative. And Correa became the cause of crime, the cause of government corruption, the cause of essentially every problem that the country has, the current governments and the previous Lasso governments on the right, they
Uh-huh.
all say it's all Korea's fault. Ecuador
Right.
was a paradise. Ecuador was the best country. Korea ruined it. Um, so I think that's an exaggeration. I think it's a false narrative, personally. I'm not saying that I think Korea is better, but from my perspective as a foreigner who was living in Ecuador,
Hmm.
I lived when Correa was the president, and I lived when the political opposition took control and took power. And the difference is extreme. Ecuador was a safe country. Ecuador was prosperous. Ecuador had a pretty good economy. I did not like the taxes. I did not like the tariffs on imported products when Correa was the president, right? Peanut butter was $13. Crazy.
Yeah.
But you didn't have the violence and the crime. You didn't have a lot of the political division. But that was the moment that things changed. And then the second thing that occurred was the pandemic. Ecuador before
Right.
the pandemic was a different country. And I personally believe that the political right corrupted Lenin Moreno and he sold the country to the right. Um, and I think that this battle was in process and in progress. And I think this is the reason that the narcos moved in and captured Ecuador. Because before the pandemic and years before that, Ecuador was simply a money laundering nation. It was a nation where narcos would launder their money because Ecuador operates on US currency. However,
Right.
it makes money laundering easy. However, when this political fighting started between Correa on the left and Lasso, Moreno, Noboa on the right, when this started, it gave the criminals an opportunity to capture the government and society because the politicians in Ecuador are more worried about attacking each other than they are about resolving society's problems. And the narcos capitalized on this. The narcos took advantage of this and they took control, right? So
Right.
after the pandemic, we saw a total collapse of the function of government, right? I mean, and now with the blackouts that Quito is experiencing, and these blackouts, these energy cuts these power cuts are forecasted to continue for another 6 months. And I have been told from some sources
Yeah.
we're talking about billions of dollars lost weekly
Mm,
in
man.
GDP, uh, that Ecuador and Ecuadorians are losing billions of dollars. Now, obviously, the government's not losing money.
Yeah. Sure.
Obviously, the public institutions aren't losing money. It's important to mention that the public sector is larger in Ecuador than the private sector, right? And there are more government workers than there are private workers. Those people aren't losing their salaries. It's the private companies that are losing money. It's the private companies that are losing productivity and profit.
Yeah.
So, Bryan, what's the solution? Uh, Two things. What's the solution to the political issues, and what's the solution to the narco trafficking issue? I mean, maybe there is no solution, but what are your thoughts on these topics?
Where? Yeah, as you said, the problem here is like it's out of our hands right now. It's under control. It's out of control. Um, so in times of extreme conditions, we need extreme measures. Um, so yeah, probably for to control, traffic, uh, narco traffic here in Ecuador, we need um like yeah, maybe a president like this one in the El Salvador, something that can put uh well stronger than the others that we had right in the past. So something that put order in his voice is not like hidden by other narratives, but by other fake news or something like that. So yeah, something stronger. Uh,
Do you
in
think that will make
that
drug trafficking disappear?
not to disappear, but for to control the situation, it could be a um very high um help
So why
basically.
not why not legalize cocaine, Brian? I mean, why I have never understood why Bolivia, Peru, Colombia, and Ecuador don't legalize cocaine production. Um,
Because I don't think that production is the problem. I think the problem is the traffic of between countries. Like because Ecuador is used by a gateway for other countries to uh to traffic cocaine and drugs. So
But I mean,
so
if it's legal, what's the problem? I mean, you wouldn't have criminal groups transporting cocaine. You would have legitimate businesses
yeah,
doing the
but
logistics.
the main consumer is not the Ecuador population.
Bingo. That's exactly my point. So
Yes,
so why not legalize it? It's not Ecuador's problem. It's the United States, Europe, and Canada's problem because they are the consumers. The demand of cocaine comes from them. So I don't understand why, I have never understood why countries in South America don't legalize cocaine and tax it and generate revenue, possibly more revenue than agriculture and petroleum together. And and I mean, I guess what I'm saying is if the United States and Canada and Europe have a demand for cocaine, whether it's legal or illegal, cocaine is going to be produced.
yeah,
It doesn't matter if it's legal or illegal. Traffickers or cocaine producers are going to produce it because there's a demand.
yeah, right.
So my question is to solve the problem of violence, because that's the issue, why not legitimize the industry and say, hey, United States, you're not helping us fix this narco problem. So we're going to fix it ourselves and we're going to legalize it. And now you have to resolve the issues of the cocaine coming to your country because the consumption is your problem.
Right. Well, that's right. Yeah, you have a good point, actually. Um, yeah, I'm not sure. Maybe there are a lot of you know, first of all, I don't think that we have, the stability to manage uh, or put a plan to manage the legalization of cocaine. Because there are a lot of efforts and a lot of things to take into account uh,
Like
before
what?
to, first of all, the regulation, like the control of the all of this cocaine
So
that
you don't
are
think that we
hiding.
could just apply the same standards and control that we use for food or alcohol or drugs that are produced for pharmacies? I mean, Bryan, it wouldn't be me and you starting our own cocaine production business. I imagine that pharmaceutical companies within the big pharma industry, if Ecuador said cocaine is legal, I
Mhm.
imagine that the big pharmaceutical companies would invest in Ecuador and build factories and produce cocaine legitimately. And why not just use the same model of control and regulation that you use for any drug that is produced for a
Yeah,
pharmacy? I mean, I don't
yeah,
understand
the
why
main
we,
reason is
yeah.
the main reason, we are surrounded uh, corruption. So uh, I don't know. I don't think that the the current regulations for drugs, pharmaceutic drugs and alcohol are pretty well controlled right now. Uh,
They're not well controlled.
I don't think so. Uh, because all of this stuff is controlled by the corruption. 'Cause corruption.
But that's a constant in Ecuador and in Colombia. I mean, this is my
Yeah,
point, right? Demand is a constant. Corruption in Latin America is a constant. Those are factors that are a constant factor.
yeah,
But when we're talking about legalization, those things are not going to change. Of course, if it's illegal, you're still going to have corrupt judges and mayors and corrupt, uh, in Spanish, fiscalias, or in English, prosecutors. You're still going to have that if it's illegal, or if it's legal, you're still going to have corruption. What we're talking about is disappearing the violence. right? I don't think that if it's legal, there will be a need for violence. And I think the best and clearest example of this is the prohibition of alcohol in the 1930s in the United States. When the government had the fantastic idea of prohibiting alcohol consumption and production, they empowered criminal groups like the Italian mafia, like Al Capone. And
Mm,
what happened when the government finally realized we can't prevent people from drinking and we can't prevent people from making alcohol. People are going to do this regardless of whether it's legal or not. So the government decided to legalize it again. And what happened? Did the alcohol traffickers continue having power? No.
no,
It
you are
it
right.
became
Yeah.
legitimate businesses like Budweiser or Michelob or Jack Daniels. It became a legitimate company. That doesn't mean alcohol's not a dangerous psychoactive
Yeah.
substance. Of course it
Exactly.
is. Alcohol will ruin your life,
Yeah.
but you can't stop people from drinking it. And it shouldn't be the job of the government. So
Mhm.
I just don't understand why the same isn't applied for cocaine. There's no reason to have murders. There's no reason to have car bombs.
Right. Yeah, yeah. It's I think it's a valid point. But I'm not sure also, it probably it's the a solution for the violence, which is it's pretty big here. Um but yeah, but well, man, corruption is also, maybe it's worse than this problem with the drugs, because all is controlled uh, with uh, with these political groups. Um, yeah, so that's why I think first of all we need to control the corruption in the state.
But can
Then
that
well
be
then
done, Brian? I mean, what you're saying, is it even possible to control corruption in Ecuador? I don't think it is. I think you're describing a fantasy that's not real. I don't think that you can have zero corruption in any government, and especially in Ecuador. I don't
yeah,
think it's possible. And
um,
the reason I say this is because the entire government is corrupt.
yes.
The Metropolitan Police to the president, they're all corrupt in different ways. So, Brian, I mean, what are we going to do? Are we going to allow the violence to continue until one day we reach this hypothetical utopia of zero corruption?
Right.
I mean, it's
Yeah,
in
but yeah, that's why we need like a very strong president that put order and put in prison all of these people, these groups of traffickers and stuff. So I think it's to take control of the nation. Uh, yeah, it should be like the first measure, I think. Uh, and then you can apply effectively other
Hmm,
laws,
I see what
other.
you're saying. So you're saying Ecuador needs a Bukele who will control crime and stop it. Then you can look at economic and legislative reform
Exactly.
to
Yeah.
change the status of cocaine from legal or from illegal to legal. I
Yes, for me.
I agree with that.
Yeah,
I think it's
yeah, for
better
me
than just introducing it right now. Yeah,
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 it's for me is like the first step.
right.
Then yeah, we can legalize because I think also I agree with you that there are more positive things legalizing this stuff and
Well, ugh,
yeah,
I think
so
for Latin America, yes. I think that
All right.
for countries that are producers, legalization and legitimization are positive. But for countries that are consumer countries like the United States, legalization is a little bit of a problem. In Portland, Oregon, or in different cities in the United States that have
Uh-huh.
very relaxed drug laws, or for example, Portland, Oregon, which completely decriminalized all drugs. They said
Mhm.
all drug addicts can use all drugs and we will not put them in prison.
Mm.
Okay, so they did this in Oregon, this
Uh-huh.
really interesting experiment. Now, this wasn't the first time this happened.
Working?
Portugal did the same thing. Portugal did this 10, 15, 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Portugal had great results. Drug addiction decreased, security increased. So Portland, Oregon tried to do the same thing, right? They have a different view on drug consumption.
Uh-huh.
They see in Oregon, they see drug addicts as sick people or victims of a disease rather than criminals, right? Because criminalizing drug addiction, you're essentially criminalizing a psychiatric disorder. And because drug addiction is a psychiatric disorder, right? This is
Right.
a
Yeah.
legitimate, there's a
Right.
problem in your brain, in your mind, in your
Yeah.
soul. It's a very serious thing. But Portland, Oregon had terrible uh, results. In Portland, Oregon, when they decriminalized drugs, the overdose deaths increased incredibly. And drug addicts started consuming drugs in public, in front of public schools, injecting drugs in front of children. So they had good intentions. Their intentions were, why are we sending drug addicts to prison and filling our prisons with people who have psychiatric problems? So we need to have compassion.
Mm.
That's a good intention,
Uh-huh.
but we see that the application was not executed correctly.
Right.
And um, so, Brian, I think it's a complex problem, but I think that countries that have consumption, countries where the demand for drugs exists, have the responsibility to think of some possible solutions because this is, it's very easy for the United States or Canada or Europe to say it's Latin America. They're the problem. That's where
Mhm.
cocaine comes from. Well, yeah, but that's not the origin of the problem, right? If the demand is in North America and Europe. So it
Uh-huh. Right.
really needs to be a coordinated effort between Europe, Canada, the United States, and Latin America. And they need to agree. They need to agree. We're either going to legalize drugs or we're going to make drugs illegal, but have a strategy, a continental strategy.
All
Because
right.
right now there's no strategy. But
Yeah.
Brian, the war on drugs, man, think about the billions of dollars that have been used for decades to fight narcos. And Brian, more drugs exist today. New types of drugs exist today. And drugs are cheaper and more potent today than they were 20 years ago. So I'm trying to find the positive aspects of the war against drugs, but I don't see any positive results. I see that it creates violence in society, but at the same time, I'm not saying that we should legalize drugs because there's more drug consumption when you legalize drugs. More people die from drugs. More people become addicted. So this is such a complex question, Brian.
Yeah.
And
I know.
there are no real solutions being proposed by our leaders. Instead, our leaders are fighting political battles for power to see who will control power. And it seems like this is not, I don't know, it's not
Yeah,
being solved.
yeah, right. Right. It's not like, the first thing in their schedule. Yeah. Yeah, and it's also, all has to do with the control of the power. Uh, and yeah, and they try to stay in that position of to um you know in the position of the where the power is. So um so yeah, it's something that, as you said, need to be handled, but by like put efforts together to control it. But yeah,
Correct.
but it's not a
So,
reality.
yeah, man. So, Brian, let me just ask you one last question here. So, and we will wrap up with this. So, Brian, if you could change one thing, one aspect of the world, of the current situation that we find ourselves in, what would you change and why?
Ooh, yeah. Another complex question. Like, it could be corruption. Yeah. I will
Hmm,
fear corruption. I think,
damn it, yes.
yeah.
Wow, correct. Brian, here in the US, man, corruption is out of control.
Yeah.
Out of control, man.
It's the constant in every problem around the world.
Correct.
So yeah. Well, I'm not saying that, uh if we delete or remove corruption in the world, we are not having wars or something like that. No, but for sure it will decrease.
But
And for
Brian,
sure,
is it possible, man? Is it
I'm
human
not
nature?
sure. Yeah, I think
Is corruption human nature?
yeah, I think so. I
Me
think
too.
it belongs to humans.
Right.
Uh,
So how can you do it without eliminating humans? How can you eliminate a component? And it's not all humans,
yeah,
right? But let's be honest, Brian. People who are in positions of power are not like you and I.
right.
Okay. You and I have goals and objectives. We have things that we want, but we don't seek the control of other people's minds and money and loyalty. People in power, it's almost like they have a disease, like a mental illness, and they crave more power. So I automatically doubt any person who is a politician because I look at politicians like, why do you want power? What is your psychological motivation for wanting power? Why do you want to control the lives of others? So, Brian, I think maybe AI is the solution. And I've told you this before. I
Yeah,
think the only way that humans will have a government free of corruption is if artificial intelligence, maybe an artificial general intelligence, administrates our society, um,
yeah. It's
and minimize human. We have
intervention,
to,
like,
yeah.
yeah, yeah, probably. Well, I also I also believe that the transparency is a big actor in the corruption problems.
Right.
And AI can definitely handle this thing, because if we introduce technology in the government process, uh, yeah, and open all of this data for the public. it could be like I don't think like we can eradicate or delete corruption, but uh eh, we can like do it more harder to do it, like uh
Yeah.
like a way to do, like a way to do in a harder way, and it's because technology or tools like this transparency, it's very important to stop corruption or uh or combat attack corruptions. So yeah, first of all, also we need to be um I think increase our critical thinking for in persons, in people, in order to get this ability to distinguish from the true or the false information. Uh, so yeah.
I agree with what you're saying, Brian. I completely agree. Transparency, critical thinking. But what about the death penalty for corruption? What do you think? I mean, I think that would be a fantastic implementation. In addition to transparency,
Yeah.
critical thinking, I think there should be a law that if you are in a position, a public servant position, if you're working
Hmm.
for the state, I don't care if you work in the Ministry of Education or if you are a police officer, I don't care.
Okay.
I believe that corruption should be punished by death. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. And there the reasons that I say this, Brian, is because I see how corruption actually costs human lives. Do you
Right.
remember in the beginning of the pandemic in Ecuador how the Ministry of Health there were memes of him vaccinating his dog, right? And he
Right.
was
That's
vaccinating his friends and his family. Remember the people who stole resources through corruption? They took resources to build hospitals in Ecuador, and there were no hospitals built.
that's
Remember that during the
right.
pandemic,
Yeah.
there were times where there were no medical supplies in hospitals. There were moments where surgeons in hospitals were operating using the light and the light from their cell phones to operate. Why? Because people had taken the money,
Right.
right? So my point is, Brian, is people die. Corruption causes people to die.
Yeah.
And I believe that people who make those decisions, when you are in a position of power and you take money to do something unethical and illegal, you are selling your country. You are selling your countrymen and women. So I believe that you need to pay the ultimate price. And I think, I mean, some countries, Singapore has death penalty for drug consumption.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah. So I think in Latin America, we
Yeah.
need to implement this for corruption.
Well, it's a very like hard penalty, but yeah, it could be useful, I think. Especially if you can like uh you can mm, prove like someone dead by your actions, your corrupt your
Right, right.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if
So,
someone dies as a result of your corruption,
exactly.
you have to
So
die.
yeah, you need to
Right.
pay the same
That's what I'm saying.
thing. So yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And Brian, think about right now, Polit, the guy who is in Miami, the corrupt politician who is in Miami right now, the Ecuadorian politician who is in Ecuador or in Miami right now, being prosecuted by the United States. He posted $14 million in bail right, for libertad condicional. He gave the United States $14 million. Where did he get that money from, Bryan? You don't think that that money came from the state or corrupt deals?
Right.
Bryan, there are people in Ecuador that don't have jobs. There are people in Ecuador that don't have food, education, infrastructure, housing. And
Yeah,
you
that's
have
true.
people in positions of power taking millions of dollars and spending it on luxury items, expensive vacations, vacation homes in Miami, yachts.
Yeah.
Those people need to be
Right.
punished, Bryan, with the maximum punishment. We know that the prison system in Ecuador doesn't work. It's
Right.
dysfunctional. It's corrupt.
Exactly. Yes, that
And
that's
a corrupt politician will corrupt the system. There needs to be a zero tolerance standard for corruption. Zero tolerance.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think we need, as you said, a very strong politics, very strong
And
laws
public
against.
executions, Bryan. I'm going to go one step further. I'm going to go one step further. I'm going to say they need to be public executions. When we find a person who is proven to be guilty, that person needs to be executed in front of society so
Yeah.
that
Well,
other people know this is what happens. Hey guys, this is what happens, right?
yeah,
I mean,
and
it's
well,
extreme, but
yeah,
Bryan,
it's
we're
pretty
talking
extreme.
about extreme situations.
Exactly.
We're
Well,
not
yeah,
talking about, we're talking about life and death. We're talking about drug trafficking, c- total incompetence of the state. So, I mean,
I
Bryan,
mean,
Ecuadorians don't have electricity, my friend. Corruption and incompetence is responsible for that.
yeah, I
So,
agree. I
and,
totally
and, and
agree.
how many millions of people
Yeah.
are going to lose money? How many people are losing money right now? Can't work, Bryan.
Exactly. Yeah, that's right.
That's what I'm saying.
It's impossible to
Try to
work without like.
quantify, try to quantify how many people will ultimately die from these decisions and the blackouts. How many people cannot receive medical care because doctors can't use the machines that they need to use
All
or the
right.
technology that they need to use? Think about it, right?
Right, man. Yeah, it's
So, Bryan, I'm an extreme guy. I like radical change, right? I like radical change. And I don't think that, making the same decisions is going to provide a real result. We have to make serious choices. Now, I'm
yeah,
not saying we need to live in a society of fear. Oh, no, we need to be free, but there needs to be a very serious punishment for stealing from the public, which leads to loss of life. There needs to be serious consequences. So,
yeah,
Bryan,
man.
stop there, man. We've gone an hour and a half, so and I know that we could probably go a lot longer, but we'll stop there,
Yeah,
man.
man.
Bryan, thank you again for joining us. I hope that you'll come back and we can do another episode and get
Yeah,
into some
sure.
other topics that I'd like to talk to you about.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Yeah. I have to say that it was a really good experience for me. I really enjoy it and this conversation and yeah, for sure. I hope to stay here in another opportunity.
Awesome.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Steve, to bring these topics in especially to not just not only to be aware of that, but also to um, create consciousness in around these problems, and especially here in my country, which is surrounded in all of this stuff right now. So yeah, thank you so much,
My pleasure,
and also
man.
to give me the opportunity to talk with you.
That's right, man. Thank you. No, no problem, Bryan. It's my pleasure. And I also want to say thank you to everyone who is viewing this video. And guys, if you have any topics that you would like to suggest for Bryan and I to discuss, um, please put those recommendations in the comments. All right, guys. Well, thank you, Bryan, and I'll see you next time.
Bye bye.